Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are here for section 4.1, which is actually the third video in our chapter 3 series. Again, just to clarify, this chapter we present it in kind of a chopped up order, so we do a little bit of 3, a little bit of 4. At some point, we're actually going to go back to 2, so bear with us here. But the next section we want to talk about is 4.1, writing equations in slope-intercept form. Now, after watching this video, we are going to write equations in slope-intercept form, but I'm going to give you 3 different types of information to do it. Once where I'm going to tell you the slope and the intercept, another time where you're going to get the slope and just a point on the line that's not the intercept, and then the next thing I'm just going to have you have 2 points and have you find the line that way. So let's jump into it. What is slope-intercept form? And to talk about slope-intercept form, we have to remember what it is we're actually dealing with here, which is linear equations. And this is basically an equation for a function, right? So something that would pass our vertical line test. But when it's graphed, it forms a straight line. Remember, I'm putting straight in parentheses because technically in math, I don't need to say straight. All lines are straight. But just in case you can't remember, these are all going to be our lines, straight lines. So you want to write that one down just to know what we're talking about. And then all of these slope-intercept form linear equations will be written in this form, y equals mx plus b. This is one of the most foundational equations that we're going to have in all of Algebra 1. It's the one where I tell students, you know, when I see you in the store 10 years from now, and I say, hey, what was that one equation? You should automatically be like, oh, do you mean y equals mx plus b? Yes, that's exactly the one I mean. If you can do that, I'll buy a candy bar or something. So what does y equals mx plus b stand for? Well, the m, as we've talked about in section 3.3, that is still the slope. Okay, so it's called slope-intercept form because the slope is right there. And then you might also remember from the 3.1 video that b is the y-intercept. And remember I said we'll use b a lot more. It's because we're going to use this equation form a lot more. So m is the slope. B is the intercept, hence the name, slope-intercept form. And then y and x are just the x and y coordinates of any point on the line. So if I want to pick that point, it can show up in this equation. If I want to pick that point, it would also show up in this equation. And it would still work. That's kind of the neat thing about it. I can pick any point on that line onto infinity, and it will always make this true. So m is the slope, b is the y-intercept, x and y are just the x and y coordinates. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, this is real straightforward, is I'm going to say the slope is 7 and the y-intercept is 3. So you think about that slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, and then you plug in the m and you plug in the b, right? The m is 7, so we write y equals 7x, b is 3, so plus 3. And if you're looking at it and thinking, it can't be that simple, and for the first 4 problems, it is. I'm going to give you the slope, I'm going to give you the intercept, you plug it in. It works with negatives, so now the slope is -2, the y-intercept is -9, so you take y equals mx plus b, and if you notice I'm writing it every time, you should write it every time too, because I really do expect you to have this one memorized by the end of this chapter at the very latest. Y equals mx plus b, m is -2, b is -9, so y equals 2x minus 9. Some students will ask at this point, did I write plus -9? And I say, if you need to, but hopefully by the end of like this week or the next, you don't need to anymore. You're comfortable enough with these that you can just write -9 instead of plus -9. They're the same thing. Slight curveball here, right? They give you the slope is 1 and the y-intercept is b, but you're still just plugging them in. Y equals mx plus b, so y equals 1x plus 0. But remember, 1 times x is just x, and x plus 0 is just x, so you can just write y equals x. You're not going to get this example, but sometimes the y-intercept will come out to be 0, sometimes the slope will come out to be 1. If either of those things happen, you really don't have to write them. Again, you can if you need to, but I'm wagering by the end of this, you won't need to anymore. Okay, this video is a little beefy, so pause here, go do 1 through 4 of the homework, and then come back. Not yet. We're not going to do it yet. It's coming. It's coming. Next thing I'm going to give you is the slope and a single point. Now, technically, I just did that with the previous one, but if it's the y-intercept, that point's a little too easy. So we'll make it a little trickier, and I'll give you a different point on the graph. But you'll still have the slope. And we still want to start with y equals mx plus b. And I still want you to write it, because that's how we memorize things. We have y equals mx plus b. We have a slope here. And then we also have a point, which remember I mentioned, this is the x coordinate. That can go right here. This is the y coordinate. That can go right there. So what we're going to do is plug in what we know. And it turns out the only thing we don't know is b. We know y is 1. We know m is 2. We know x is 4. So we can solve this equation and figure out what b is. This is one of the neat things about algebra. We can take an incomplete set of information and complete it. So how do we solve this equation? Simplify the right side, multiply 2 and 4 to get 8. Add 8 to, subtract 8 from both sides, and we get b equals -7. Okay, 2 times 4 is 8. Subtract 8 from both sides. 1 minus 8 is -7. B is -7. Okay. Once we've done that part, we're right back where we were on the previous examples. We know the slope is 2. We know this y-intercept is -7. So we just plug them into y equals mx plus b. M is 2, b is -7. And that's it. And the truth is most students will forget to do this last part. They'll figure out that m is 2, right? I give you that. They'll figure out that b is -7 and they'll just stop. Those kids only get half credit because the question will be asking, what is the equation or the line with a slope of 2 that goes through the point 4, 1. This is the equation that does those two things. It has that slope, it goes to that point, okay? So make sure you finish these problems and actually write out the full equation, okay? I'm going to give you guys one to try. I'm going to move my head out of the way. Yep, I am. There we go. And I want you to pause, and I want you to try this one on your own. See if you can plug in what you know, plug in the y, plug in the m, plug in the x, and see if you can figure out what the equation will be. I'll pause. Or you pause. I'm not pausing. I'm just going to stop talking. Okay. If you pause like you're supposed to, same process, right? Start with y equals mx plus b. Okay. Plug in what you know. We know that y is 4. We know that m is -3. We know that x is 1. We don't know b. Okay. -3 times 1 is -3. Add 3 to both sides. B is 7. Okay. Solving simple equations there still. Now that I know what b is, now that I know what m is, y equals m -3x plus b plus 7. Okay. All right. Pause the video again. And you can now do number 5, 6, and 7. So I'd pause the video while these examples are fresh in your head and go do those 3 problems on your own for your homework. Super Mario Kart. There it is. Super Mario Kart. I picked that one because my youngest daughter likes it a lot. My oldest daughter thinks it's cool too, but my youngest daughter likes it because she can be Princess Peach. And it's the most recent game I own that has Princess Peach, which is almost 30 years old, but whatever. She likes it. It's fun. Super Mario Kart. All right, last example, and these are the tough ones, okay? Because now all I'm going to give you is the 2 points. These are 2 essentially random points on the line, here and here, for example, or wherever, and then you have to find the slope and then find the intercept so you can write it in slope-intercept form. So how's this going to work? Well, first we got to find the slope. So remember the slope formula, m equals y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. Okay, we did that in section 3.3 and a little bit in section 3.1a. We're going to use that same exact formula and we're going to plug in what we know. Okay, so I've got y1 -3 minus y2 minus 1 over -1 minus 1, x1 minus x2. -4 over -2 simplifies to 2. Okay, that's just using the slope formula that we did in our previous videos. Now, once we've got that done, we know the slope. Now we just need a point, right? Same thing we did over here, right? We had the slope and a point. Okay, now we can do that same thing here. Start with y equals mx plus b, plug in what we know. And here's where it gets to be a little fun, because you'll see here what I did. I plugged in the point 1, or sorry, 1, 1. I used this point. And why did I choose to use this point over that point? Because both would work. I mentioned earlier, I could pick any point on the line and this will work. I chose 1, 1 because it was the easiest. Sometimes it's not going to make a difference, like which one's going to be easier or harder. They're both going to be the same difficulty. But in this case, they're both 1s. 1s are always easier to work with, so I plugged 1s in. And once I plugged the 1 in here for x, the 2 was the slope that I found. The 1 here is the y from the same point. 2 times 1 is 2. Subtract 2 from both sides. I get -1 equals b. Okay, so this step here is to pick one of these 2 points, plug them in for x and y, plug in the m value that we just found, and we can do the same thing that we did in the previous problem. It's all about finding b. Everything that we're doing is I'm giving you less and less information in order for you to still find b. Here you had to use the 2 points to find the slope, and then you can find b. Once I find b, y equals 2x minus 1. The slope was 2, so I plug in the slope is 2. The y-intercept was -1, so I plug in the slope, or the y-intercept is -1. Same thing we've been doing, I just added an extra step at the beginning. I made it a little bit harder for you, but it's still the same process, okay? Be sure to pause here for this one and try this next example because these ones are worth the extra practice, okay? All right, good. Figure out your slope, y1 minus y2 over x1 minus x2. Plug it in. Lots of negatives in this one, so be careful. Write 3 minus -2. I'm using the parentheses to keep my negative signs separate. -2 minus 3 comes out to 5 over -5, which simplifies to just -1. Okay, use your calculator if you need to. And then once I've got my slope, I plug in my slope, I plug in my x, I plug in my y. -2 times -1 is, sorry, -1 times -2, +2. Subtract 2 from both sides. B is 1. So notice here how I wrote this. Y equals -x plus 1, right? The slope was -1. I don't need to write the 1 here. Can I? Again, sure, but you don't necessarily have to. Okay? All right, this should be what you need to finish those last 3 examples. Take your exit ticket, Super Mario Kart, and I think you're good. I think you're all set. If you have any questions, as always, please reach out, and we will see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.